Welcome back to the show. Our next guest is the author of an emotional and thought-provoking book called Dear White Woman, Please Come Home. It's described as an invitation to white women who want to build authentic and honest relationships and friendships with black and brown women, even when the truth hurts or rankles. It also serves as an affirmation for women of color. So please welcome author Kimberlee Williams to New Day. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I am so glad to talk about this book, and like you said, we dressed to match the book today. Tell us about this. What prompted you to write this book, and what does the title mean?
Well, I'll tell you what prompted me. I was in a workshop designed for black women and white women to come together to sit just as close as we are pre-pandemic and to share truths with one another and to be able to respond to those truths. Yeah. And I stood in because there were many more white women at the workshop than there were black women. And at the end of the workshop, we sat knee to knee and we said, here's a truth I didn't share with you. And here's why I didn't share it with you. And then the white woman had the opportunity to respond. And many of the black women said, I didn't tell you because I didn't think you cared. And then the white woman would say, well, wait a minute, I didn't have a chance to care because I didn't even know. And that answer came up again and again and again. And as it came up, I got angry. I felt angry. I thought, how could you not know? Yeah. If we're on YouTube, right? We're on the news every day. We're on all platforms of social media. Right. These stories are in the newspapers. And so I went home angry, and I think I was joking when I said it, but I remember saying to my wife, I was sitting at the bar, and I was like, I'm gonna write a letter. I'm gonna write a book full of letters to white women so they never again say they didn't know. Yeah. And that's how it began.
I love this. This book to me has power in the way it's written in a non-traditional way. Can you kind of describe what you mean by explaining the writing as imaginative nonfiction and why this way of storytelling was so impactful? Because it was to me.
Yes. So I'm a director of DEI at the Bush School here in Seattle, and so much of what we do and so much of what's written in DEI books is very educational, very cognitive, very head. It's very head heavy. And I wanted to speak directly to the heart of white women. And so I remember being a kid and running to the mailbox and getting my piece of mail with my name on it and feeling like that was so beautiful. And so I wanted it to be a personal and an intimate experience for readers, like a chat between me and that person holding the book.
It really was, and it affected me. I thought about it in many ways, and kind of as people have grown. And so I just have a question: did the white sister in the book, does she represent what happens when implicit bias poisons our young minds as we grow, as we continue our way in the world?
Oh, absolutely. What she represents is how we move through the world without negotiating the culture that we've been passed, right? Like our cultures are just a set of thoughts, ideologies, beliefs, and behaviors that we have that we share generally with our family and community, our churches, our youth groups and things like that. And then we get to a place where we don't question those cultural norms. And then we get into relationships with people who are from different cultures, and we clash because we never interrogate those norms that have been passed down to us.
Right, we don't think about it. I'm thinking about something very specific in my head right now. In one of the letters, because the book is a series of letters, you tell a story about a white woman that could have spoken up about an issue at the grocery store. Right. You said there was an opportunity to lighten the load. Right. But my question to you is, could that also be seen as being a white savior? And if so, can you help separate the two?
Right, definitely. So many people have asked me this question, like, I don't want to come off as a white savior, Kim. I don't want to jump in where I'm not needed. I don't want to. And so recently a reader asked me, I think it was on a radio program, I was in a situation like this happened in the grocery store in front of me, and I wanted to speak to the woman that was on the receiving end of the microaggression. What should I have said? And I said, here's the thing. Every time I ask women of color in these situations, in these stories, what did you want from the white woman in that situation? And they said, I didn't need her to say anything to me. I didn't need her to do anything to me or for me. I needed her to #get her people, right? And so often I hear people say, I want to know what to say to the person when this happens to them. And I say, but they actually want you to speak to the person that looks like you, right? To your family member, to your friends. And that is different from white saviorism, right?
That's the distinction.
So, yeah.
You mentioned microaggressions, and that is something that you really want the reader to understand. Why is that so important for you to parlay that in this book?
Yes, because all of us are capable of committing microaggressions, and I think the word microaggression scares people or turns them off. But the truth is, microaggressions are like allergies. They're sitting and dormant inside of us, waiting for the perfect scenario to bring them out. And oftentimes you can avoid committing microaggressions by getting into relationship with people, by learning, by expanding that network, expanding your circle, because then you start to interrogate the things that you were raised to think, believe, see, and you start reducing the amount of microaggressions you commit.
Well, that perspective only comes from experience, right?
Exactly.
And you've got to experience it. So how can both people of color and white women benefit from this book?
People of color have read the book and have just said thank you. People of color who have wanted to share these stories, who have wanted to share these experiences and haven't for fear of retaliation, maybe fear a lack of promotion at work, maybe ostracization, right, in their neighborhoods, isolation. And so people of color need to read it because they will see themselves and feel validated, and the resonance that their hearts will feel from reading their own stories. White folks need to read it because it's an intimate invitation. It's an intimate invitation to say, listen, I'm not here to call you racist. I'm not here to call you sexist or xenophobic. I'm here to say, I'd love for us to meet in the middle of this bridge and to have authentic relationships, like beyond the good morning, how are you? You know, how was your weekend? Great. I mean an authentic relationship where, you know, I described it to one workshop attendee where she said, Kim, I'd like to be your friend. I said, but are you the friend that brings the flower and the card to my dad's funeral? Or are you the friend that I called when I found out that he passed? And that's different. That is different.
It is different. And I think this is where the imaginative fiction piece is so good, because it's just every story you read, you're like, have I been that lady? Have I, you know? And so it's important to know that. What are you hearing from readers? You mentioned you heard from one reader at a radio workshop. What are you hearing from them now?
Thank yous, and how can I do better, and how can you bring this book talk to my YMCA or my local library, or you know, I didn't know. You know, one of my favorite comments was, you know, Kim, I'm in a relationship with a man of color. I'm married to a man of color, and nobody in my life, I have friends of color, and nobody has ever called me and said, what you said or did offended me. The only person that has said that to me is my husband. So does this mean that my friendships aren't as authentic as I thought they were? And that was powerful. I mean, and that's the whole purpose of the book, is to get people thinking about these things.
And they will be now, because they're asking that question, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.